JB, sometimes it's fun to watch a wrestling show, not just a wrestling show, and it's centered around your world champion and telling a story of challengers trying to make a case for being the next challenger. And this just felt like kind of a deep breath, step back, let's have a singular primary focus, hit some other things on the show. But they told that story throughout. Especially with Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland as two of the centerpiece people, with MJF cutting a promo early on. In a sense, it almost was like a show that I wanted TNA Impact to be last week, which is, here's an introduction to our world champion. Here's why you should boo him. Here are some of his challengers. Here is a match later that will feature a top challenger. And here's the context for the match. It was, very, very straightforward in that way. And I mean, I like that. I think there should be sort of a grounded, here's a central theme, and do it pretty straightforward. And that's what this episode of Dynamite was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I actually just listened today to your flagship, Jason Powell, and I actually disagreed with him a little bit. I think actually AEW is in a good lane right now, kind of setting things up for the next pay-per-view, which is Revolution. I mean, I know they have Grand Slam Australia in February, which probably treated more like a pay-per-view as well. But yeah, I mean, I think they're in a good lane right now, a good consistent lane. There's a good mix of everything on the show right now as well. Obviously it's probably always going to tend to tip a little bit more match heavy, but I thought there were some interesting promos tonight, some better than others as usual, but overall, yeah, I think it's a good, easily digestible, unoffensive show altogether. So
talk about MJF's promo in particular here for a moment. He and gave a promo that to me felt like, hey, if you've never seen me before, here's what I'm about. It didn't have, it had some of the, kind of go-to heel tropes, the whole I'm better than you shtick, but his character is I'm better than you. Let me explain why. I'm rich. I have nice things. And you people aren't worth in your lives what I am holding around my waist. Basically hit those points, but it wasn't meta. I didn't think it was shock jock. It wasn't the type of promo that felt like it was seeking a sugar rush, dopamine, or dopamine rush, social media gratification afterwards. It was just a grown-up professional heel who knows he's good at getting heat and went out there and told his story of who he is. And I thought it was the right week to do it because the point of this show was, let's make you want to see him lose the title, and let's introduce you to some people who are lining up to do it. You want to be rooting for those people to do it. And I thought MJF, again, if you had never seen AEW before, never seen MJF before, you know who he is now, and you know that you want to see him lose, because that guy, I want to see him get punched.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, I almost, 100% agree with you on that, in the sense that I thought there was a little, bit of the MJF kind of shock jock aspect of the promo today, but I thought it really worked for, honestly, two primary reasons. One, it was very short pre-Brody King interruption, which was kind of the shock ear jock aspect. So, that kind of worked. And secondarily, it got much more focused once, Brody made his appearance. And I think it really made people want to see Brody, kind of beat up, demolish MJF in what might kind of just be a holdover feud between now and Revolution. And now also the idea has been planted and that Brody is going to start knocking down some more prominent competition to get to MJF, to make him worthy of a title opportunity, which I think is always a good story to tell as well. And makes, I think Brody a more compelling character as we move forward. So.
For clarification, what did you think was shock jock relating to the lead up to Brody coming out?
Yeah, I just thought it was just some of those more quick tropes that, about the fans being, fat and ugly and things of that nature, which, sure, I could do a week or two without, but that wasn't a big deal. Like I said, it was very, very minor part of the promo. So altogether, I thought it was a hit.
Yep.
So,
yeah. And Brody King isn't going to probably be a centerpiece pay-per-view main event long-term challenger to MJF. I'm not saying I'm not putting a value judgment on whether I agree with that or not. I just think based on how he's been portrayed and kind of how he's being introduced as a challenger here, they're probably not going that direction with him. But he adds to the top tier people who are positioning themselves, Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland in particular, as MJF challengers. And it's good to have somebody fresh in that position. And one thing that I liked about it is seeing Brody stand opposite of MJF. Brody King has shown himself to be somebody who knows who he is. He's outspoken, I think, in a refreshing way compared to some other wrestlers out there on kind of social stands he's taking, and it makes him more of a babyface, I think, for a lot of fans who are in the pro wrestling demographic. Not all of them. And I think it's a good counter to MJF, because MJF seems like the type of guy that Brody King would not get along with in real life. And it feels believable. And MJF has somebody fresh to play off of that isn't a rerun. And I'm not against going back to old feuds that were interesting. People take journeys, they end up in a different place. I think that's valuable. You shouldn't write it off. But you want to mix it up. Brody King is somebody who, in the first Continental Classic, people like, push this guy. Then him and Bandito got hot as a tag team. And then people are like, hey, let's try this singles thing again. Do you think he has the gravitas, given if you've watched him on his full journey and, the Macarena stuff, which probably isn't the best thing to be doing in the middle of title defenses when you're maybe on the way to being a world title challenger. Is it a mixed bag, or do you think he's absolutely believable in this role going face to face with an established guy like MJF?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's always been compelling, and I think it's telling that he's managed to stay over despite, I think, some of maybe the missteps along the way. Maybe he should have received kind of this push a little bit earlier. Primarily, kind of like when he had the first Continental Classic run, I think would have been a time to kind of really strike while the iron was hot. But not to say it's over. I don't think he's been diminished to the point that it's unattainable. And I think he is compelling. He's still very much over. He got a good reaction from the crowd today. They were clearly invested in him. Happy to see him. So, I mean, I think he has the capability certainly to kind of be in this, what I would consider more of a holdover feud, but it's still, a top level. He's being pushed to the top of the card. And, hopefully this means, he'll at least be in that, stratosphere kind of moving forward as well. And obviously, I think with the exit of Powerhouse Hobbs, I think Brody is Powerhouse Hobbs in stature with a little bit more personality and can kind of, carry the boat from a character and a charisma perspective a little bit better than Hobbs could. So, I think it makes sense to kind of move him into the Hobbs role and even higher than that. So,
yeah. I think AEW might be getting themselves into a little bit of trouble by making an issue of you have to earn your title shot in a believable way with actual wins. I'm certainly all for them doing it, but that can end up being a bit of a problem if you apply that across the board. I do in isolation here, and I'm being a little facetious, but I like the idea that they are telling that MJF's telling Brody, you got to beat somebody, get a stretch of impressive wins going. Kenny Omega last week said the same thing. As an EVP, it doesn't mean I just get to be a turnkey champion. What do you make of that? Is it a trend? Are we seeing something that maybe was there before they didn't get enough credit for, or does this feel like a shift in how Tony Khan is framing at least the men's world title at this point?
Well, I think perhaps maybe it is a shift to start off 26 because we're seeing it from all three kind of main contenders right now. They're telling Brody he needs to do it. I think he will. I think that's the idea of what's going to happen here. Kenny got a pretty big win today over, I think, a credible Josh Alexander in a match that I think people have wanted to see to a certain extent. And then, Swerve in the main event, got a win over what we're being perceived as a rising Kevin Knight, which also I think could be a breakout moment for Knight as we move forward in this year as well, which is also a positive thing, potentially MJF seeing two future contenders there. So I think kind of all the guys that are circling MJF from a title perspective, it's being made clear that they want to knock off the competition necessary to be valuable enough to get the title shot over one another as well. So I think that's being made clear in this new year. And I think that's intentional.
Yeah. Let's jump to Kenny Omega and the impression that he made after we briefly introduced the show here, and then we'll also get onto Swerve and what's going on with that. Some other things on the show also in the women's division and tag division. This is a Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post show covering AEW Dynamite right after the Wednesday, January 21st, 2026 episode. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the PWTorch weekly newsletter. Fresh, hot off the presses this week. We got our cover story on TNA and my in-depth TNA Impact report, along with a column from Greg Parks looking at Wrestle Kingdom and New Year's Dash with kind of an overview on that, and news notes and my end notes column and much more. Check it out. Go VIP if you want to read the PDF or all text version of it. pwtorch.com/govip gives you details on unlocking all our VIP content. You can also get a paper copy home delivery. I just held that up. If you're interested in looking forward to going to your mailbox, if it's safe for you to do so. People of color in Minnesota don't get to go to their mailboxes these days. They have to assign a white person to do it, or ICE will spray them and kidnap them. And it is awful what's happening. Every day I just want to emphasize to people it is horrible. I mean, like, you go to Costco, there's no people of color in the suburbs, in the city. Somebody just wrote on my social media, my white friends are asking me, why won't you go out to the nightclub with me? And it's like, because I don't have they're not gonna. I'm gonna get carted off. Like it's insane. Anyway, you can look forward to going to your mailbox if you're.
Terrible stuff.
And we should have a president who decries it and stops it. And it buck stops with him. This is his thing. They are not going after the worst of the worst. That is not. I can testify firsthand that is not what's happening here. It's a bunch of a lot of are poorly trained thugs getting paid a lot of money to hit quotas with a promise of not being held accountable for breaking the law, and their leadership is setting a terrible example. All right, I can't in good faith not talk about this. I mean, I feel like people are going about their lives like we don't have fascism in Minnesota and other states, but it's highly concentrated here, and it is I have to get that out every time I do a show so people know I'm not living in La La Land or taking advantage of white privilege. I mean, I am, but it's awful, and people should be, I think, a lot more aware and a lot more upset, because there are stories of people going, "What are you talking about? I'm going about my normal life." And it's like, okay, pay attention. All right.
Totally understand. Yeah.
Point made. Yeah, I feel good getting that out and getting it out at this point. Anyway, we're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I am, by the way, penciled in to do another live show tomorrow night. I doubt it's going to be a weekly thing, but I had fun last week. It was fun talking about a whole different product, even if I was down on the show. I would have been maybe a fine regular show, but for a first impression on a new network, I thought they made a lot of mistakes. But they're live tomorrow night, and so unless something happens, and I've got a super busy schedule tomorrow, I'm hoping it'll all work out. Join me live right after Impact. I'll be covering it along with Darren Lilly live on PWTorch, and then we'll be here on the YouTube channel again if all goes as planned. If I'm not here, something came up, but that is my plan right now, and so I want to get that out there because I hadn't really fully announced that yet. But yeah, we're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sometimes Thursdays, covering live on our PWTorch YouTube channel with the Wade Keller post shows. Also on Tuesday nights, the PWT Talks NXT crew takes over here on YouTube and does a live NXT post show. And then we also will have something going on Saturday after Saturday night's main event this Saturday. A lot of coverage. I think 6 straight days we'll probably have live post show coverage here on our YouTube channel. And then all of it is distributed on our podcast networks. We've got 3 main feeds. Search Wade Keller to subscribe to the Red Logo show. That has all our post shows. Subscribe to the Blue Logo show that pops up when you search Wade Keller. That includes our weekly flagship. This week it was Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net joining me. We have a rotation of co-hosts on the flagship. Plus we have pay-per-view previews and mailbags and special interviews and more on that feed. And then finally, search PWTorch in your podcast app. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Android, and iOS apps. Or find links on our main website at pwtorch.com and search PWTorch and subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast. The impact will again this week be on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed because we have that night open, and it won't mess up our pattern with what we put on the red feed, because we really only do 1 show on each feed per day. If we do 2, bad things happen. So we'll probably have that show on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed. And last week's post show is also on there from Impact. All right. You can email this show, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com if you're watching us live. And you can also participate in the chat live if you're watching us on YouTube. We will always, for our podcast audience or audio-only listeners who download the show later, always read the chat comments on air so that you know what we're talking about. And it's a fun, dynamic part of the show. You can also call us. The link to be a caller is in my Dynamite report at PWTorch. Just go to Keller's Dynamite TV results, and you'll see a link there. You can click on that. You can be on camera, or you can turn your camera off and just be an audio caller, just like our Blog Talk Radio days. That is fine, too. We have Rude Dog waiting to join us to talk about tonight's episode. He'll be first up. Standard Deviation, by the way, was in the chat last week after Impact and says, I'll give TNA a couple more weeks. And I hope we get a better episode from them. Derek Mitchell said, I'll be there tomorrow for TNA on AMC. I can't wait to see who replaces JDC in the System faction. So there we go. And Brian Wilkins says, Wade, I always appreciate your insight on current events. Yeah. Anyway, I'm tempted to give more anecdotes about just awful, inhumane things happening in this city. Our senator posted about some terrible things. I mean, and videos are terrible. It's rough. And I'm trying not to let it become normalized or get used to it. But it's hard to, because you're just surrounded by people who are scared they're going to be yanked out of their car and thrown in a a detaining center for 4 hours or 3 days without explanation, and then ejected once you quote prove that you are a citizen. And anyway, it's rough. All right. By the way, Sadler version 3 says, I'm jumping all over here. Sadler version 3 says, I'll watch it since you guys are doing a review as far as TNA Impact goes. So I will take responsibility then for a slightly higher viewership number when our numbers come out. We did break the news on Impact's viewership number last week. You can find that on PWTorch. I also wrote about it in a little bit more depth in my VIP exclusive Wade Keller news bulletin earlier this week. I did news bulletins on Monday and Tuesday this week covering variety of topics, by the way, including some insight into the timing of the decision to have Drew McIntyre beat Cody Rhodes and how that came about. Added some detail to that, and also wrote about my first impressions of the first couple episodes of WWE Unreal. You have to go VIP to see or hear our Wade Keller news bulletins. It's a new feature that is a full-page PDF with 3 separate sections. You can also read an all-text version if you're on your phone, and you can also listen to me read it if you prefer the podcast format. So the Wade Keller news bulletins, VIP exclusive in 3 different formats. Pickens 42 adds to me bouncing around here between current events and in-house notes and plugs. Says it's sad, scary, and uneasy here in the Twin Cities. Wade is right. ICE is not going after the worst of the worst. Well, they might be, but there's not that many here, and they're going after a lot of others also. I mean, I'm not going to deny they might be finding some people who are not good people, but past administrations found a way to do that while following the Constitution and not terrorizing a city and children and causing kids to stay home from school and escorts of school buses and people taken to the streets to try to protect fellow citizens. It's just grotesquely unacceptable, and people should be outraged. And especially if you have a Republican senator or representative, call them, email them, and let them know that you think they should be speaking out and standing up, and stop fearing the orange man who is deteriorating in front of our very eyes and trying to distract from the fact that he and his DOJ under his command are not releasing the Epstein files. And also, everybody watch Jack Smith test or watch clips, because that hopefully will confirm more of why he's awful. All right, let's introduce our co-host, JB from Detroit. JB, welcome. Thanks for standing by as I hit all of those talking points all over the place. It is great to have you back in the co-host chair again. And it is great to have you also contributing TNA Hits and Misses now to PWTorch. When I talk about our coverage, not only did I do a written report last week, Darren Lilly was put his up on delay, but you also had your Hits and Misses up shortly afterwards too, with pros and cons from the show. So we look forward to your column on the website about that on probably on Friday. We'll get that posted. Yep. Yeah. Welcome.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Wade. Yeah. It's been, I've been not really, I would say, a regular TNA watcher over the years, but, I've catch things here and there. And obviously with the more, more eyes on it, I thought it'd be good to help contribute. So I'm kind of excited about that. And, it's a lot, I'd say, actually more fun when you're more critically looking and kind of covering from a hits and misses perspective. Definitely great when you have to feel like you're looking for some hits to include necessarily, but that's the case of last week. So hopefully it's a little bit better this week. But I also do the AEW pay-per-view primers, which I enjoy doing, even though we're on a little bit of a hiatus there as well. Really opportunities as we move forward. So.
Awesome. Well, Derek Mitchell in the chat says it's good to have JB from Detroit. I always enjoy his emails on the post shows. And Adam Kidd 2720, it says love having a co-host from the 313.
Absolutely.
Zach Barber says, Wade, you're a masochist watching TNA again after last week's debacle. Hey, it's not my job to just watch shows that I think are well done. I mean, sometimes the shows that are a work in progress or a debacle are sometimes fun to analyze too. I don't hate watch. I went in hoping for the best. I was maybe almost too generous in my review last week, right after the show was over, even if I wasn't giving it a thumbs up. But it's hard to defend about that.
The main event wasn't awful, but they should have definitely done a better job of highlighting the main event throughout the show, as opposed to, as you mentioned, some of the rah-rah stuff that was going on. Yeah, and I think they know of that feud, which I think they should maybe handle that a little bit better. How they position things before the debut is also, as Jason Powell mentioned, how they handle the roster as well. I think they could have handled that a little bit better. But
Zach Barber says a work in progress. LOL. Yeah. And they have Jeff Hardy and Mustafa Ali as their main event tomorrow night, and I don't think they mentioned it once on the show. Did they mention it? Did they even mention it in passing that I missed?
If I recall, they had like AEW does with like they showed the quick, but it was really like you could blink and miss it. It was not something that you know about. I mean, it's not something I even thought about after the show or kind of going forward. I don't know what the main event was till you mentioned it on the flagship this week.
Yeah. So just, I mean, you had roughly 100,000 more people watching, more than double the usual, roughly double the usual audience. 173,000, I think, was the number I got, right around there. And I don't know how many of them are going to come back after last week's show. It was just a missed opportunity. And part of it just, it hit a lot of pet peeves about, promoting the brand instead of the wrestlers. And, somebody, this is probably a good discussion for tomorrow, so I won't talk about Dynamite, but somebody had mentioned, well, TNA can lose wrestlers. They don't have a budget to keep the top names, so they really need brand loyalty. And my response to that is, I think brand loyalty comes from making the best of what you have and focusing on matches and wrestlers and titles, and not promoting a generic brand because you're, faced with the reality of maybe not being able to keep them for very long. But want to at least, acknowledge that was a defense for TNA promoting the TNA brand. But to me, I just think the brand loyalty comes from entertaining people with the talent you have during the weeks, months, years you have them.
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. How are you going to get loyalty? People don't enjoy what the people they're watching, and they don't expect that they'll stay long. I mean, you're not going to invest in that point.
The chat's having fun. Adam Kidd says Zach's takes are a work in progress. All right. Anyway. Sadler version 3. We won't do too much here more on Impact, but he goes, I predict it'll be better. It can't be worse than last week, and I doubt they'll have goofy D-list celebrities again. It should be a normal wrestling show, hopefully. No, I agree. All right. Sandy Aviation said the opening line of Wade's report was perfect. What were they thinking? And Adam Kidd says us Detroiters get slept on for being a great wrestling town.
Yeah, I think we've actually been some of the higher attended AEW shows in particular. They've only been here like twice, I think. Both were big shows. One was the Kenny Omega Moxley Steel Cage match, and the other one was the Blood and Guts. I believe I did go to the Blood and Guts. Yeah. So
yeah. Pickens 612 says Brody King will be the biggest babyface when Dynamite comes to St. Paul in a couple months. Yeah, with the whole anti-ice stance that Brody King has taken. And, anti-ice doesn't mean you're just against any kind of policing of people who aren't here legally. I mean, that is a whole separate debate, and I get that there's nuance to it. It's the tactics that they're using, the brutal, terroristic, over-the-top tactics they're trying to hit quotas instead of actually following guidelines, just humane guidelines and understanding of somebody. You don't have to prove you're a citizen. The burden is on them if you're not, and they're not targeting people. They're just indiscriminately waiting around looking for people of color driving around, or hearing from neighbors. Where does somebody live who's a person of color? It's unbelievable what's happening right now in this town. All right, Kenny Omega, Josh Alexander. This was a show with some lengthy matches. We'll get into the pros and cons of that a little bit, especially with Joe and Speedball. But Omega beats Josh Alexander in hour number 2. And afterwards, he said this is the best he's felt in a long time. He said he's living in Orlando now, feels better than he has in years. And he told Don Callis none of his men can beat him. Don Callis seemed a little shaken up by that. He was pouting a little bit that Omega was so confident and in making us come back. And then he kind of did. What did this match do for you? I mean, it's cool to see Kenny wrestling a singles match and looking like he can move, not gingerly, not getting a few spots in and then taking out, but actually having a full-fledged 12-minute TV match.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the match. And, I think honestly 12 minutes is probably, for this particular match, is probably actually the right amount of time. I don't think Josh Alexander is credible to a certain extent. I mean, he's probably, let's say, higher middle tier of the Callis family, which is obviously, enormous at this point. But, I think, he has credibility a little bit from the past. Maybe they rely on that. Maybe they rely on that a little too much. But he does have, he looks credible as well, which I think carries some gravitas. And it was a very good match. It was a very entertaining match. Kenny is progressively looking better. So I believe what he's saying as well. And I did enjoy his promo after. I mean, it was short and to the point, but that's honestly the best Kenny promo, honestly. And it was effective. It was effective baby face promo. And, it kind of made you want to believe in him. And it made you kind of want to see him get back to where he was. And you want to be part of that journey now. which is, I think, a little bit of the story of 2026, particularly with how he's going to be, chasing MJF, which might be a good position for him at this point in his career. So
they MJF watching from the crowd in this match too, so really underlining the champion. In this case, he was watching on a monitor. In the main event, he was watching from a luxury suite. And I like that. I mean, I just want to underline the theme of the show was MJF is our champion. Here's why you shouldn't like him. I mean, this to a great degree, the show followed the formula that I expressed TNA Impact showed last week. Although it didn't end in a world title match, it was centered around here's your heel champion, why you should want to see him lose. Here's, in this case, multiple challengers who want to face him. And Kenny Omega's a big name, and having him back in the mix and believably expressing confidence that he's feeling good again, I think we'll get the fan base that knows about him excited about him again instead of going, oh, maybe he's in a different phase. But also, Kenny's peak before AEW existed that he rode the momentum of into the company, that's like 7-8 years ago now. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of people who are AEW fans who are not Omega, Okada, which of their matches do you like best? I'll rank it and analyze it, people. They need to see why Kenny is a big deal. And Kenny is, presenting himself in a babyface top babyface manner right now. I mean, this is maybe as good as it's been because it's straightforward. He's not a good promo. He's not a very good promo. He's a passable promo. And when he goes, I want to talk to you guys all day. I could talk to you all day. I can imagine the fans going, no, Kenny, we like you, but that's okay. We don't need to do that. We don't need to talk for a very long time with you. A little bit goes a long way with him. But there was almost maybe a self-awareness about that as he went into his closing routine. But, Kenny is still good enough, and there is an innate star power and charisma to him in the way that he's presented in AEW. They're simple, and I think it could work, and this could be kind of a comeback year for him, JB.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think he's taking on a bit of an underdog tone, which I don't think in the past would have worked. But I think at this point in his career and kind of what he's been through, it works. It works better for telling the story with MJF right now as well, as being kind of part of being on the chase. So I think it really works well to tell that story going into 2026. As you mentioned, there's other contender options as well. So maybe there isn't too much pressure put on him, which maybe affected him a little more negatively in the past when he had to be the guy, and it was that or that or go home. So I think this is a really actually good place for Kenny right now to maybe have one more really big run. I mean, I think he's got plenty of time left to a certain extent, but just one more big run at the big prize and kind of centerpiece story that could be headline a big pay-per-view. So yeah.
Yep. One man's voice said, can't wait for Kenny against MJF on pay-per-view. Derek Mitchell says, Kenny also said no one in the Callis family can beat him, which has me projecting Tommaso Ciampa being another member of the Callis family. Could be interesting if AEW gets Tommaso Ciampa and they can make him into a top tier competitor.
And the family does like its bald members, so he fit in.
Yes. So let's move to then Swerve Strickland, another guy in the world title mix. Standard Deviation said if Swerve is turning heel soon, they could do that one first. Swerve against MJF. So what did you make of this? Because it's not just about whatever they're doing with Swerve, and there's been some speculation it'll be Kevin Knight turning heel too. I don't know, whatever. I mean, I don't think they gave super strong hints tonight in body language or anything. By the way, I'll pause it. Do you think if you're watching this match as an average viewer, AEW is trying to steer them towards one of them turning heel at all? And if so, more one than the other? Or is this pretty straightforward tonight?
I mean, it's possible. I think I lean more toward it's straightforward. Maybe this is planting a seed for well down the line. I would be surprised if it happens in the next few months, honestly, because I think the Knight story is just so young. I think you want him to be kind of an upstart babyface. To kind of reach his potential right now, and then think about the heel turn, in the more distant future. And for Swerve, I mean, he's just so over and he's so cool. It'd be hard to make him not the cool heel, which I don't think is what you need at this moment right now as well. So I think that there's other better heel turn options kind of at the top of the card. So I think I'd keep them more straightforward right now and kind of more. Swerve is the mentor, kind of guiding Knight along the journey, and Hangman's part of that as well. I think that's kind of the story I would focus on. And I actually mentioned in my notes as well, which I took. I really kind of like what they're doing with the the speedball, like how they're like focusing more on the speedball, the jet speed, and then the swerve and hangman kind of being more the center of the show the last few weeks. I actually do kind of wonder too who's going to have more of the breakout year in 2026. Will be Speedball or will be Kevin Knight? I think there's pros and cons to both. I think Knight has a higher ceiling, but it makes sense to give Speedball the push while he's closer to his prime. But I like how the show's been centered around Swerve, Hangman, and Jet Speed the last 2 weeks, and the storyline has been a connective tissue throughout the last 2 Dynamites, which has made everything feel a little bit more cohesive, which I'm very fond of as well. So
yeah. With Kevin Knight, I think, I'm a fan of what Speedball brings, but I think he is a spirited underdog babyface who's going to give you good matches. He's easy to root for, but I'm not 100% sure he should be going as long against Samoa Joe as he did tonight, as competitively as he was, and to have Joe needing, help to beat him or anything like that. I think Kevin Knight has something. I think he's the right size for AEW's top tier roster. And it's tough to stand out athletically in AEW, but I think he does enough. He hits that threshold, obviously, where it's not like, but he's not exciting enough compared to some of the others. That's a challenge that, like Ethan Page in AEW, it was such an athletic-based company, and he's more, Larry Zbyszko-esque ring psychology heel, and it works better with what WWE and NXT are doing, and he's I think AEW could have used him much better and he could have been valuable, but Kevin Knight fits in. The challenge would be, does he have it in him? If they want to have him be a cocky young heel who turns on his mentor, does he have it in him in this context to have fans turn against him because he's so exciting and fresh and young? And that's the job of Tony Khan and the team around him. But to me, Kevin Knight, I think Kevin Knight should get a bigger push and should win more big matches against top tier guys. And they should try to see if they can't add him to the top tier through not just in-ring performances, but character development and promos.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I do see a lot with Knight. Obviously, I think there's a lot to learn, but there's a lot of just raw potential, which I think is evident. And kind of going back to the Speedball Joe match, while I almost always agree with you in this sense, I really enjoyed this match. So this would be a match I'd make an exception for, going a little bit longer. And I think it works a little bit with Joe too, because he's really kind of like the beat down, and then obviously you get the comeback night spots, which I think work in a longer context. But they should do less of these type of matches overall to make this type exception a little bit more palatable. So,
and I think AEW, I've defended the long matches where the outcome. Defended maybe as a strong word. I've added this context to it as a mitigating factor to criticizing how when you know what the outcome is going to be. Why are we watching a match with an obvious outcome 99 out of 100 times, probably at least 29 out of 30? You'd be right. If it's going to be a long match, the outcome. And I guess in AEW, they've set up a world in which it takes a wrestler who is going to win a long time to win. It's just by definition, based on the world they present, if you're better than someone, you don't necessarily beat them in 5 minutes. It takes 10, 12, 14, 18 minutes to beat them. And at least they're sort of consistent with that. Not 100% consistent, but, I don't know. I know it's more of an excuse after the fact, because it's just Tony Khan wants to let good wrestlers have good matches, and good matches have to be at least 13, 14, 15 minutes. So I don't think it's a philosophical decision, but I think the mitigation of why did Speedball last so long against Samoa Joe is, people who watch AEW are used to that. Like, it does take anybody who's even halfway decent, it takes someone better than them quite a while to beat them.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of adding to the specific match that we're discussing, I think the near falls were very convincing in this match, and kind of the contrast in size and style between Speedball and Joe worked. They actually had me thinking a few times that Speedball might actually get the upset victory. So I think the in-match storytelling worked when, if you were told before the match how long it would be, you'd be like, not great. But I think the in-match storytelling made this match in particular work kind of in a vacuum, I would say. And, adding a little bit to that as well, I wouldn't mind seeing a lower level kind of Speedball hook feud as well. I think that could be interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that suggestion, yeah. All right, well, let's bring Rude Dog onto the show. And again, I invite anyone else to call us up who's watching us live here. Rude Dog, welcome. Good to see you. What's on your mind about tonight's show?
Hello, Wade. Hello, JB.
Hey, Rude Dog.
Good to talk to another Detroit basketball lover.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on to basketball season now. Football didn't end so well. So at least we're, actually after tonight's win, I think we're pretty close to the top of the basketball in general as number 1 seed. So,
number 1 in the East, Cade Cunningham is a legit like MVP candidate. So, watch out.
Yeah, I actually went to the game the other day, so it was fun. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys didn't even touch what should have been the lead of the show, that the former Baron Corbin, Bishop Dreyer, made his AEW debut tonight in a dark match, I think. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I actually wasn't aware, but I mean, I wasn't as big a downer on Baron Corbin in WWE as maybe a lot of people were. And I think he does add a different dimension to AEW should be brought in, obviously size-wise. He's got a decent amount of personality as well. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of value in him. Now, maybe they've been signing a little bit too many people over the past few recent weeks. And maybe part of that was, short TNA a little bit for their debut, which I could see that as well. But I never hated Baron Corbin. So I think there's a certain value in him right now. So.
It can be like Big Bill and Big Tom and just be like a new skyscraper tag team or something.
Hey. All right. And also Billy Gunn came back tonight too, so watch out for that.
I kind of put that as like a quick hit at the bottom of my notes as well. It's like I thought we got past this, but I guess with one gun injury, we're forced to see him again. So
62 years old and more muscular than ever. Yeah,
it's got to be magic. I wonder what could be the difference.
I can't wait for him to no sell and get the pin, and I don't know. Anyway,
no funny business going on there completely. But I thought the crowd was pretty good tonight. It seems like it was like odd show to put together because they had to cancel Collision and put it on this show, and like some people that were supposed to be on Collision couldn't be there because of upcoming weather in Texas where they were supposed to film it. So it seemed like kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge. I think Dynamite was pretty, all set, but the Collision thing is definitely different. But I like the crowd. I saw AEW Revolution 2002 in that arena in Orlando, and Orlando, it is a good wrestling town. I mean, there's plenty of stuff there from NXT to all kinds of other like little indies and stuff like that. So I thought it was a refreshing crowd, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think I saw WrestleTix had it at like over 4,000. I mean, they met it up to like 4,500, which is actually a really good crowd for a Dynamite nowadays. And I mean, I felt that maybe a certain bit more of energy than I guess last few weeks. And I mean, it is the happiest place on earth. So
I noted in my TV report when citing WrestleTix numbers, 4227 distributed, that the arena, the last time they were there, they drew 5729. So, and that was a little over 2 years ago.
Was that a pay-per-view, right? Or is that?
It's December 28th, 2023. I'm not sure if that would have been with that. I don't think so.
Maybe it might have been World's End, actually. Now that I think about it, I think it was
in that venue.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah. But they, what was I going to add about that? Oh, but it was, notice at the top of the TV report that it was the only 6 Dynamites in 2025 drew a bigger crowd than this one.
Okay.
Yeah. World's End took place December 30th in Uniondale, New York at Nassau. So it was 2 days earlier. So I don't know what that would have been. Yeah. So yeah, good crowd for them. I mean, not by a wide margin or anything like that, but it was down from the previous time. So there's that a little bit of an offset to the positive, but yeah.
Yeah. I think it's pretty good way to start the year. So
yeah, I'm sure there was a lot more people when I was at Revolution in 2022, but I was distracted because just by random, I was placed next to the Ty Conti family, where she happened to be wrestling Jade Cargo for the TBS championship. And they were the most loudest, craziest, like, bunch of people cheering for their family member. And it was like baffling. But anyways, that's a side note. So you're talking about Kenny Omega, and he's looking pretty great right now. I mean, is he top star New Japan Kenny Omega? No, but do you believe that he is like main event caliber, at least for one more ride?
JB, give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is the perfect time, actually, to give him one more run. Is I kind of touched on earlier. They're positioning him a little bit as an underdog, which he's never, ever, in my opinion, ever been positioned to be before in AEW, at least. So it's a little bit of a different story that they're able to tell now. And I do think he's looking healthier and looking better, kind of match by match. And he's probably getting strength back to a certain extent. And they're protecting him less in kind of, trip trios matches and things of that nature, which is originally, I think, why they put him back with the Elite. But no, I think the strike while the iron's hot. I think MJF is a perfect opponent to do it with as well. So maybe make the first half of 2026 about MJF and Omega, and then also keep the Swerve and the Hangman seeds planted as well. For backup plans or just even for the future as well. So
yeah, I'm always been an advocate for Kenny, if healthy, to be presented as a top star. Give him mic time, give him reps, let him show what he can do in the ring. And I think Josh Alexander's a good opponent for people who, and I don't want to overplay like, people who don't know Kenny Omega, but you never want to assume. I always say, don't assume knowledge when you're a wrestling company. Like, you want to be playing to, like, I think on NHL games, every season in the first month, they should explain what offsides is, explain what a forecheck is. There are new people watching, or people who've watched for years who didn't play the game. They just like watching, and they hear these terms, they don't know what they are. I don't think there's harm in that. And so with Kenny Omega, if they're serious about this and he looks like he's ready to go, and you can tell there's a confidence in him that hasn't been there in a while that's showing up, and people will pick up on that. AEW should do their job too. I mean, don't overdo it, but like remind people like why, and I think they did a little bit in commentary recently, but continue to not assume that it's just a given for everybody watching that they know that Kenny Omega is a Hall of Fame megastar who, has had one of the top in-ring careers of this era. But tell people that. And one, it also just underlines for people who know it. That's right. Kenny is special. I shouldn't forget that. But, a key for him is to be authentic, but not too authentic in his promos, like where he just doesn't seem like a serious person. He loses his train of thought. The way he talks doesn't match a serious athlete who is taking his job seriously. And sometimes he doesn't seem like a serious athlete taking his job seriously. Now, I don't mean as a performer. I mean as in the canon of being a wrestler. And so I'd like to see him show some emotion in terms of the passion, that the fire that's burning inside him, so fans can get behind that he wants to build on his legacy with a world title win. And I think they're in that realm right now. And also the rivalry with Don Callis, and have that be deeply personal. And I don't want him to do kind of what Sting did in a lot of promos, where it's like, well, I got a couple things to say, and then I kind of lose my train of thought, and I said, I'd like to talk to you all day, but I'm just going to go into my closing words. I would actually drop. I don't know. I'll actually ask you guys: would you drop his closing little catchphrases at the end, and have him kind of grow? Like Jericho reinvented himself constantly, multiple times. Is that nostalgic and so identified with him, or would you kind of say let's come up with something fresh? JB first.
Yeah, I think first off, I think as far as Kenny promos go, shorter is sweeter. I think it's perfectly okay to keep his promos, concise and tight. It works for him. It works for him from Babyface capacity. And secondarily, to answer your question, I definitely wouldn't do it every week, or every week he's out there. I wouldn't do it. I would maybe save it for specific occasions when it kind of works more and makes sense and kind of brings back a nostalgic pop. But yeah, I don't think anyone should have like a catchphrase or promo that you have to work into everything that you say. That just seems so forced to me. WWE does it a lot, which really bugs me, drives me crazy at times. I think they need to really work on that. But yeah, I would say limit it with Kenny. So
before I throw to Rude Dog, Zach Barber, of course, says, no, the crowd and I love the bang closing line. Standard Aviation says, I wouldn't bet on Kenny reinventing his promo routine at this age. I think it becomes a little less special, and I don't think it's obviously pertinent or even clear what he's even saying or doing or why to be something that someone tuning in, if you're trying to, my whole goal is how do you create new fans and not have people just feel like, wait, what is that? You know, and I think some people do. I think they just kind of listen to that and they go, what is that all about? And there's no way to really explain it in a way where it's going to be like, oh, now I'm really into that. I don't think. So, I mean, my vote, Rude Dog, would be bring it like JB, basically JB's thing. Don't never say it again. But I don't want to feel like that's every promo is just waiting to get to the point where he goes into autopilot and that's his comfort zone. I kind of want him to end his promo with something that doesn't feel like a nostalgic catchphrase. I'm just, like I said this about Street Profits too. Like, I just don't need them to end. We want the smoke every promo. We can pick out so many other people who have catchphrases. I think it becomes a crutch, and then it doesn't, I don't think promos end with that emotional crescendo. I don't think top guys should use that as a crutch. And it would force him to kind of rethink some things. And I think people would be like, whoa, Kenny ended without that. That's better.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, the whole shtick, yeah. I mean, the Bang thing, I don't necessarily like hate, because I know Bang is actually, I mean, it's kind of nebulous. It's just kind of maybe, more for like impact, which I think sort of makes sense. And I think it is way better than the We Want the Smoke. That seems really forced, but to me, honestly. But yeah, like you said, I mean, everything's better in smaller doses typically. I mean, you generally, so yeah, I agree overall, Wade. So.
Zach Barber said, what's confusing about him saying goodbye and good night? Edward Murrow ended his show with good night and good luck every week. I'm not saying it's confusing. I just don't think it's cool. I don't think it's.
Yeah, I agree. I don't feel like a talk show like necessarily either, though. I mean, it doesn't, no, I'm not confused by it per se, but yeah. I mean, if it's just a straight, like, Bang thing, okay, maybe that's a little bit different. But the whole shtick is probably a bit too much. So.
Real Legend is blaming me for the Street Profits humping around. He goes, thanks to you complaining, Wade. We haven't seen the Street Profits for months. Derek Mitchell adds, diverticulitis is debilitating. I've gained more respect for Kenny Omega coming back and looking as good as he does now. And Standard Aviation says he has a great story to tell right now. Sadler Version 3 adds, it's not that Kenny's closing shtick is confusing. It's just corny. And I think that actually is a good, I mean, I don't spend too much more time on this, but because I kind of made my point, but I think Sadler adds a good point. What I think will hold Kenny back is that I think the peak experience for a fan watching Kenny Omega and the most effective he will be is not eliminating entirely, but steering away from him being a not serious person, as I said, or corny. And I just don't know that he can be the top draw he can be if he leans into something that undercuts. And that gets to what I'm saying. Like, I want him to be more serious about the fire burning inside him and that kind of thing. And when he goes into the kind of the corny closing phrase that fits in Japan and sort of this called fun, goofy thing, I think it undercuts making people think, all right, Kenny's serious. It's not like this huge deal. Even though I spent 5 minutes, it's not a huge deal. But I'm kind of searching for ways to go. How do you get Kenny to the next level with all the missed opportunities and setbacks he's had? And I think part of it is give his existing fans a sense of a hard reset and curate some things and challenge him to do something new so that promos end on a note that doesn't feel like he's still living in the past a little bit with some kind of corny little signature thing he does. Rude Dog. Sorry. One Man's Voice says, what? It's not corny, especially when it comes off as serious as it did tonight. There's no way that can come across as serious.
I thought maybe, honestly, tonight it worked better than it normally would, but he didn't just do it tonight. He does it almost every time he's doing a promo. So
yeah. All right, Rude Dog, your thoughts.
Yeah, it's funny you're talking about that so much, because it definitely came to my mind. It was like, is Tony Khan making him say this at the end? Because I don't really feel like this is like what he really wants to do. But I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I think he just does it because it's a thing he does. I mean, Kenny's great, but I don't think he has a long enough track record for me to think that he thinks every single day about how to make his promos better and shows up to TVs with ideas and ready to take things to the next level on the mic. And I think if you take away a little signature catchphrase that worked well in Japan with adoring fans, and the people in the United States who appreciate it from afar and feel like it's a treat to be present for it. I think there's room to expand beyond that.
Yeah, and I'll stipulate that I did like overall like his promo tonight. So
I think that's kind of why I'm saying, because I think there's, JB, what you're saying, I think there's actually more there than there's more potential there than I've seen in a while. So let's build on something that's fresh and new and serious, and not just sort of fall into the, what kind of feels stale and nostalgic to me. I would rather have something that feel a little more fresh and a little more serious at this point. All right. Derek Mitchell says he's the first Grand Slam champion in AEW history, and I'd like him to be more serious and take away the silly catchphrase. He's like a dad telling bad jokes. And Sadler says he did it in Japan all the time. I think it's Kenny's choice. In other words, not TK's. Yeah. All right. Rudog, what else?
All right. So there was a match with FDR with Alec Price and Jordan Oliver, which I saw them and I was like, whoa, like, I've seen them in the indies before and GCW and whatnot. And I was like, oh man, they're going to get destroyed. But then I was like, oh wait, this is AEW. So they're going to have a competitive match. So I was like, okay. So what did you, this was their Dynamite debut. What did you think of them, as an up and coming tag team?
I'm not sure what to make of the way that they were presented, and I don't think viewers know either. It felt like a tryout match, or these are nice indie journeymen who can take bumps, but we're not going to give them a ring entrance. They don't have a team name. They're going to lose in 6 minutes to our top tag team, or one of our top tag teams, and we're going to move on. I don't know if people had a lot of thoughts afterwards about them. I mean, I felt like they're a bit of a throwback to like 80s tag, where every kind of territory had like the Fabulous Ones and the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Rockers and the Fantastics, and they could have fit in that way. There's a little bit of kind of a Private Party or Rascals type thing, where just young guys who are just really athletic and high energy. But I didn't get a sense of if even Tony Khan has decided what he wants to do with them. I don't think losing here permanently defines them down, but it's a missed opportunity if they think they're good enough and fill a spot in AEW, that there's a spot to be filled. There's an open spot. It didn't feel like that message was told to viewers. It seemed like, here's some notable indie guys. Felt like an NHL minor league guy who gets called up because of injuries, and he looks okay, but he's on the fourth line, and then he gets shipped back down to the minors. It didn't come across to me like, hey, there's exciting new stars, and I just don't know if you can give people a first impression. You can't give a first impression another time. People saw this, so you have to approach it differently if you now end up deciding, hey, let's bring them back. They're good. They have something. So, but I'm not even convinced they should be. I'm just saying, if the question is, how do I feel about it? I don't know, other than obviously they didn't bring them in with a ton of forethought or a plan to make them a centerpiece, fast rising story of 2026 in the tag division. JB.
Yeah, I get the feeling that we'll be seeing a lot of them on Collision. That's to say that, I didn't have a problem. I didn't dislike them, but they didn't jump off the page to me either as well. They seem fine, but I don't see them rising to the top ranks of the tag division. Now, obviously, it was the first appearance. They didn't really get a lot to show the personality, which maybe they probably should have done like a package before the match to let us know who they really were. I mean, they said they were kind of new signees, but what do we know about them? And, what is even their style? I mean, we didn't even have any, information on how that would look going into the match. So we just kind of had to learn during the match, which isn't the best way to make an introduction. And, I guess they remind me a little bit of FTR in the sense that if you saw FTR, you think that them as a throwback team as well, but they probably do it a little bit better. So maybe it wasn't even the best first matchup for them also.
Yeah. Well, a few comments in the chat here on this. Standard Deviation said, I thought AEW did a terrible job introducing this new team. Who are they? What are they about? Where are they heading?
Agreed.
Yeah. Zach Barber said, I think the match was exactly as long as it needed to be. I mean, yes and no. I mean, it was as long as it needed to be if the idea was give FTR a win over, some 20-something-year-old indie guys who you're not going to see again unless they go to ROH for a year. Ducky D128 says, it's FTR versus Nick Wayne and Nick Wayne. Two thin-toned guys. Good there. Derek says Jordan Oliver used to be in MLW 2019 to 2021 as part of Injustice. And I watched Oliver and Price in Limitless Wrestling, where MJF defended the AEW against Alec Prince in a 30-minute match. Interesting. All right. Derek Mitchell says, they feel like New Breed. That's a good comparison. Chris Champion and I'm forgetting Chris Champion's partner's name for New Breed. So Derek in the chat will remind me. It's two one-syllable names, first and last name, but I'd have to go through, have to pause and think it through, or Google it. But I'm going to do that. That's a challenge for the chat. All right. Let's see. Ducky D said, that being said, I love the Graps. I meant Sean. I knew if I stopped. Chris Champion and Sean Royal. There it is. Sean Royal. I knew it was Sean. So anyway, that being said, I love the Graps. I'm interested in their next match. By the way, the New Breed were from the future. They were a tag team from the future. It was a kind of a corny, was it early 90s or late 80s? WCW tag team. Zach Barber says, Alec Price and Jordan Oliver aren't names. No, that is. Alec Price is a name. Oh, I see what you mean. They're indie. I'm here all week. They're indie standouts, so it's going to take time to establish them. If only Tony Khan had a place where he could build prospects like them. Did I sense sarcasm from Zach there? Standard Aviation says they didn't look very smooth in the ring. They were doing the same moves Swerve and Ospreay do, but they looked rough doing them. Do you agree with that, JB? That was a little bit rough. I mean, I could imagine being nervous.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I thought they were fine. Like I don't think it was like, oh my god, this is terrible. But I didn't go, man, I really didn't go, man, I got to see these guys again either. First impressions matter, I think, to a certain extent. So, yeah.
By the way, look up on YouTube, New Breed, WCW, Sean Royal, and Chris Champion. It's fun. Their early, the way they treated them and presented them, in the early 90s or what. I wish I could remember the year. It might have been late 80s, but whatever it was a different era, but it's fun and you'll see the comparison point, I think. Oh, it was mid 80s. Okay. All right. It's all a blur after a while. Derek says it was mid 80s and Jim Crockett Promotions. I guess that feels right when I think about them on like Worldwide Wrestling during the syndicated days. Derek says, what about the Rascals against FTR to introduce them to the AEW crowd?
I'd want to build the Rascals a little bit before they face FTR, honestly, and I think the expectations for the Rascals are higher than for Price and Oliver. So
yep. One Man's Voice says Tony wanted to give the kids a rub, showcase the future. They look good. ROH, use them in ROH now. ROH use for now. Intro to the audience. One Man's Voice also said, by the way, going back to the last topic, I can't believe we're focusing on a catchphrase when it was his first one-on-one match in a long time. It came off as a serious contender for the championship. Yeah, we covered that first. And it's because of that One Man's Voice that we're looking, not, okay, finished product, everything's great. Yeah. It's more like, hey, can you take something? Now we're optimistic about him. It was a singles match. It was against a good opponent. It was a good match. He looked good. Now, should we refine it or should we just go, job's done? I believe in refining something and trying to build on something positive. I wouldn't be talking about it if Kenny looked bad or was a tag match and he did it and he just felt like he was checked out. He seems checked in. Now let's try to amplify the potential there.
Yeah, and I think like I said, it's a minor point, but I mean it's worth mentioning. So
yeah. And sometimes minor points deserve a little discussion.
Exactly.
But I don't want to harp on it for 3 weeks in a row. Rude Dog, what else on your mind?
All right, next topic. So the opening match, Speedball versus Samoa Joe, is pretty good. But what took me out of it was all these stupid like ref distractions from the ops that just made it look so ridiculous. Like what am I watching here? Like, how can someone be such a doofus that like they're distracted while you can hear them getting hurt and whatnot?
I'm gonna guess the mentality is people. AEW fans like Samoa Joe because of his history in TNA and ROH, with AJ Styles, what he's done in AEW off and on, and they're worried he's going to get cheered. So he's a heel, so we need to make sure the heel has people at ringside distracting and interfering on his behalf, so he gets booed. I mean, I'm not endorsing that, but I think that's probably the mindset. And it's like a lot of things in wrestling. I think you just want to rethink things sometimes and go, wait, Speedball Samoa Joe should not need help because we're going to go 15 minutes. I don't want like Speedball shouldn't survive while Joe has Hook and like interfering left and right, and Shabbat on the other, the other side of the ring, just creating distractions. Like, it should be enough of a story that Speedball surviving against Joe without help. I don't think you need to, quote, protect Speedball. I think you're gifting him a competitive 15-minute match. I don't think it's good for Joe that Speedball not only overcame Joe for 15 minutes, but also outside interference. So I just think don't overdo it. And then, Rude Dog, you bring it up too. It's hard to pull off without kind of looking clumsy and making the ref look like a doofus. So kind of save it for when you need it. I'd say don't just, there's so many things, there's so many things that I think match producers and wrestlers do by default. Oh, it's what we do. And I just think it's good to constantly rethink that stuff and go, should we do it this way, or is the context different here?
Yeah. It just kind of ruins the match to me, because that was a pretty good match, and like, were you just watching the ref like waiting until he can look over his shoulder? It's just like, come on, man. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
Be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm saying, Rude Dog, what else?
So one last thing. So MJF was damaged pretty badly with the whole Adam Cole feud, and he's finally got himself back to main event level champion. Do you feel like he's back at the peak where he was when he was firing all cylinders a few years ago, or does he still need, to gain some more steam?
JB, what do you think? I've been clear. I'm a fan of his work lately. So
sorry, you cut out the Rude Dog. Who was the person that you asked if they were kind of at their form? Who was the person?
MJF.
MJF.
Yeah.
Okay,
because he mentioned Adam Cole stuff kind of set him back. So
yeah, I think since MJF has returned, kind of a couple weeks before World's End, then he won the championship in the 4-way. I think he's been really good. I mean, I wouldn't say in his most prime form necessarily, or the best he's been in AEW, but it's definitely in the upper tier of where he's been. And I think he's getting back towards that top range that he's been in over the years. And obviously, I think in hindsight, it kind of really made a lot of sense with what they did as far as having Joe kind of suddenly beat Hangman, which a lot of people questioned at the time, and being that transitional champion. A lot of people complained about that. I mean, I like that. I think it made sense. I think he wanted to kind of keep MJF and Hangman separate to a certain extent. That's going to be revisited this year, I would imagine, again at some point. And then, definitely MJF's been carrying the water from a promo sense. Like I said, he still does some of the tropey stuff sometimes, but usually he brings it back to the title, and he's really good at that. He's also really good at kind of bringing up his opponents just to bring them down to a certain extent as well, which I think is a skill that not everyone has. I think like if we were talking in like WWE, Gunther does a very good job of that as well.
Yeah,
I think it's obviously very much different kinds of heels, but it's a similar tactic in that regard as well. So
yeah, and I mean, short answer, I think he's in a good spot. I think he's recovering well. And sometimes you just recover not by trying to solve it all in 1 week, but just reestablishing who you are, get back to the basics, strip away some of the stuff that came across a little extra or desperate or hack or addicted to the shock of, in the dopamine rush of people talking about you afterwards, and just be a good money drawing main event heel who fans boo, and don't mess around with it. Don't try to be too clever. Don't get caught up in this whole thing of, well, everybody knows everybody's not, like WWE Unreal and all the books and all the podcasts. So why even pretend? It's like in the AEW world, and thankfully MJF's not exposing himself as being something other than what we see him as, but just be immersively believable as this prick who you want to see get beat up, and makes life so much easier all around. And so, and he looks good. I mean, people made fun of the hair and all that, but I mean, he's carrying himself like a champion. He's talking about his lifestyle being in a way that Ric Flair talked about it. And then he's got a little bit of Roddy Piper, a little bit of Gino Hernandez. There's a little bit of Eddie Gilbert at his peak. We could go on. I mean, it's just, he's pulling from some really good heels in different eras, but also making it his own. It is not it was not a given that I'd be saying this. I mean, it is what he has done in recent weeks that leads to me endorsing this version of him. This is the one I've been, kind of hoping for and describing that I think would be the best presentation of his skill set. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I think the hangover, it's been long enough. I think we've had enough water and enough sleep and enough days gone by to be over the hangover.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Wade, MJF, I think is the closest to, you mentioned kind of being that stand-up comedian in professional wrestling, where he holds that character dear, and it's it's who he is, and he doesn't show otherwise, which I think is a very valuable trait that he has that almost no one else in professional wrestling has, honestly, in anywhere. I mean, maybe like lower indies, but I mean, they don't have the visibility, obviously, of an MJF. So,
Standard Deviation says I'm high on MJF's promos this past month. Yep. Rude Dog, anything else?
No, I think that's it. Great talking to you guys. Be safe and take care. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Yes. Thanks.
Yep.
Appreciate it. All right. We've got the Death Riders to talk about. As has been the case for a long time, I have no idea how we're supposed to feel about them. I think it's got to be by design, JB.
Yeah.
Like, they are just who they are. But Marina Shafir, it seems like a babyface 1 second about to be slammed by Lance Archer, and then she's out there attacking Toni Storm at ringside, whatever, an hour later. I don't get it.
Yep.
I don't get it. Do you? How would you describe some new viewer, or even a longtime AEW viewer, what's going on with them?
Yeah, and I'll kind of circle back to something I think Darren Lilly touched on last week on the Dynamite post show. But the question I asked myself after today is, are they going to use the Callis family as the vehicle to turn the Death Riders full baby's face? That's the first question I have. And I guess the second part to that question, if that question is yes, if so, will they revisit the Death Riders turning on Mox or vice versa at some point in 2026? So those are two immediate questions that kind of came to my mind after today's segment. And so kind of, one point to that as well is that I did think that it was probably too early to have, such a violent, street fight for this feud, but obviously that's on par for AEW. And then also the last point I took is that Marina Shafir, is a badass. She adds something to every kind of match or segment that the Death Riders are typically in. And I hope they don't miss the boat with her, because there's something really there that they could highlight and bring more out of as well. But those two main questions about, are they going to do this Callis family Death Riders feud to the Death Riders full babyface and ride that for a little bit into the year and then revisit the Mox turn or vice versa? And I honestly think that's probably what they're doing. Is that my preferred path? Probably not, but I also don't hate it. I'm a little bit more in Darren Lilly's camp, I think, in that regard. So,
what about Marina Shafir, and like how are we supposed to feel about her given how she was presented today in two different segments?
Yeah. So with Marina Shafir, I mean, I know they're walking a kind of a bit of a tightrope there, because obviously being a woman, but she's a badass woman, and she's competing primarily with men and mixing a little bit with a woman at this point as well. But if they're going to feud with the Callis family, I wish the Callis family would get a badass woman of their own to kind of be part of this as well, where they can both mix it up with the men. But obviously the primary enemy or opponent is the other female in the group. So that's something I think they might do. As well. But yeah, Marina brings a lot. She's a differentiator, I think, to use it in business terms, that makes the Death Riders special to a certain extent. And I think they need to highlight that a little bit more. Not that they're not doing it, but I think there's more that they could do as well.
But are we supposed to be rooting for her or against her?
I would say at this point, we're probably supposed to be rooting for the Death Riders now, but they could probably make that a little bit more clear. But I think that the Callis family is so hated that maybe, Tony is insinuating a little bit more than what the work he's put into it at this point. But I think that the Callis family gets such genuine heel heat and just a genuine hate. And the Death Riders have not always been, but at times they've been cool. And Moxley has primarily been cool during his time in AEW. I think we're supposed to like them, but I think it will become a little bit more apparent as we move forward to this feud. So they're doing it maybe a little bit backwards to a certain extent, but I think it's possible that all's well that ends well in this case. So,
yeah, a couple comments here. Zach Barber in the chat said, that made my head hurt. The Death Riders are total faces against the Callis family. And then she's back attacking Toni Storm and flipping off the crowd, which she noticeably didn't do on Collision. And Zach pointed that out in his feud tracker, that she's slapping hands. And she's slapping hands on the way to the ring on this show too. So that's the part that's just, it's you're like, whoa, wait,
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, JB.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but it kind of gets me back to this, Stone Cold kind of giving the stunner to everyone, where she's just kind of supposed to be the badass, and
I hated that. I thought it was awful. I told Steve Austin I didn't like when he did that. I thought, I don't. First of all, I don't. I mean, this is a whole sidebar, JB, but I don't think you should give a stunner that helps you win world titles to women. I don't think you should give it indiscriminately as a fun little pop. It's almost like, a Three Stooges move. I mean, you protect your finisher. Don't turn it into something you just do for laughs. So I was against that. And so this gets to my thing of, just because you can cite something in the past that was done doesn't mean that precedent is justification to do it. It might have been criticized back then and a bad idea then. I just think if people like, oh, Marina Shafir, Lance Archer, boy, she was a badass, stood up to him, I like her. And then she texts Toni Storm later in the show. But this gets to what Sadler says in the chat. They're back to the Blackpool Combat Club mode. No idea if they're heel or face. And I think there's sort of this like pride in it. And I think it greatly underestimates that this ambiguity leads to ambivalence. I think people want to get behind somebody because they consistently like them, or you want to have someone you're either consistently rooting against them or for them. I don't know what the justification is. And if it's a lack of thought or a cavalierness towards structure or thinking you're reinventing something, I don't think it works.
Yeah. No, first off, I agree with you. I'm just stating that's what I think they're thinking.
Right. Yeah.
But to add to that point, and this was getting kind of more really into the weeds, but I think that also it's possible that Toni Storm may be turning heel sooner rather than later against Mina, which in turn would kind of make sense with what Marina's doing if she continues to feud with her. But again, that's working a little bit backwards. That's getting really into the minutia on these things.
And she's still attacking her during a match at ringside. That's a heel move, no matter what Toni Storm's future is. Yeah. Agreed. I mean, if they try to justify it retroactively, it's still like, well, that was a heel move against them. It made Toni Storm sympathetic. If you try to turn her heel, I don't know. Yeah. I would not. I mean, I know you're trying to explain what they might be.
Regardless, it's all backwards, but I guess it would make a little bit more sense in the future.
Yeah.
So,
Zach says, I watch soap operas with situationally good and bad characters all the time, so this doesn't typically bother me, but Marina was just jarring. Derek Mitchell says, I feel like Marina's going to kick Mox in the balls, paying homage to China, kicking Triple H in the balls back in 1999 and join the corporate ministry. Could be doing a lot of things.
Yeah,
what's that, TB? Sorry.
TK does love to pay his homages, so
yes.
That's a word, but
yeah. Yep. Grant of Real Squared Circle says, it's unexplainable. After 2 hours and 11 minutes of Dynamite, I felt like nothing mattered. Nothing is any further along this week compared to last week. There are a few good in-ring moments. Yeah, well, it was. I disagree. I think that's an overstatement.
Yeah, I think that the world title still seemed greatly advanced to today, actually, which is honestly the biggest thing, obviously. So, yeah.
It wasn't new, but it was reinforcing what they put in motion, and I'm okay with that. Like, there's 52 weeks of 2-hour Dynamites a year with some 3-hour ones. I mean, there's weeks where you just want to reinforce stuff. It's okay to watch a wrestling show and be entertained for 2 hours and 10 minutes and not feel like there's a top 10 story of the year that just happened, or something that's going to create a buzz, an ephemeral, meaningless buzz on social media that got manufactured and wedged in needlessly. This is a mature, patient show in certain ways, especially, as you say, JV, the world title aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, too, I think I touched on, but it's a little bit ancillary to the world title, but Jet Speed and how they're kind of be intertwined with both Hangman and Swerve. I think that could be furthering Kevin Knight for the future as well, which obviously it's little bit of pieces at a time, but it matters. So,
yeah. Did you go to the website? I'm trying to find the URL so people can Stokely Hathaway's website.
No, I didn't.
Helpbigstoke.com. There it is. Helpbigstoke.com.
My wife asked if that was real too. She actually watched wrestling show for the first time ever, all the way through today.
Well, that's the lead story. We should have started with that. You should.
Actually, too. So one note on that was what she said is literally. I've never prompted her anything on this, but she asked. In the main event, she asked, "Why does everyone have belts?" I'm not even joking.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and I've never prompted. She's never heard anything about wrestling or anything like that. That's just an observation she made. So,
that's funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I went to the website, helpbigstoke.com. He wants help for his injuries. He's wheelchair bound now. And if you go to the website, it has a little gift tally that shows he's raised over $1 million, and it's increasing. But if you click on the donate link, it says that it malfunctioned because you probably weren't going to donate enough. And then it says, but in the meantime, you can order these, and it plugs his 2 T-shirts.
Yeah.
So it's a merch. You can buy merch, but they're not actually taking donations.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think Stoke has turned into a pretty good heel manager, honestly,
Yes.
Which I don't think he was. I think he wasn't polished, which is oddly enough because he did a good amount of time in NXT, but I don't think when he first came to AEW, he was polished. But I think he's grown to be perfect for the role for FTR, and he's really made them unlikable as well, where they were a little bit of the cool heels for a long time. Now they're not. They get genuine heat at this point. So that's good.
Yeah. It's always fun when a wrestling manager's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So we had Chris Statlander, Willow, and Harley Cameron doing a promo, and then we had Tekla kind of lead her group in a promo too earlier. So there's a bit of a Triangle of Madness setting up their individual and group rivalry of Statlander, Willow, and Harley. What'd you think? Statlander's kind of front and center. Willow's off to the side. Obviously, Harley's not. She's the third one in that group. I don't have a lot to complain about with Statlander. It feels like I have a little bit to complain about. It's still, to me, I'm hesitating because I feel like there's just some progress in the delivery, but it looked like it came across as a promo that she practiced in front of the mirror 50 times in the last week. And I never feel like the words coming out of her mouth are matched to a thought that she had that she turns into words. It feels like the words coming out of her mouth are memorized, and then she's applying human inflection to memorized words. And if she can get to the point where I feel like it's not overly clever language, and she's just working from bullet points and talking in a way that feels like a human being would talk, I think there's still something there, but it feels like a kid memorizing a speech for class and practicing in front of a mirror. And you're on national TV as a world champ. I just think you should be better than that. I want to see more progress. But this was a passable promo, JB.
Yeah. So I'll start off kind of with what I did like. So I liked the sense that Stat and Willow were, I think, felt much more serious in this backstage promo tonight. Even if Harley stayed kind of more in a comedy mode, they felt more genuinely serious about their title matches next week. And you want your champions to feel serious about the titles. So that was a positive that I did enjoy. One aspect that I did enjoy, and this didn't like, and this is about the Triangle of Magnus segment, is, should Tekla be ridiculing the ridiculousness of the Statlander on and off alien gimmick, like in a live promo?
Maybe the hypocrisy is a feature, not a flaw for a heel.
Yeah, I guess, but it's kind of more of the Jim Ross, where maybe some things should be left unsaid, even if they are true, and it's not good to highlight that people are like,
I get you.
That's dumb. And
she called it an alien ass bullshit routine, I believe.
Yeah, which I don't entirely disagree with, but I don't know if you want your audience thinking that about your champion.
Yeah.
So
you want me to pretend that I'm intimidated by your alien ass bullshit routine? I mean, it does land a little too true.
It works for Tekla in the sense that I'm glad she's not intimidated by that. That would be stupid. It makes her look more legitimate in my eyes, and I'll agree. I think Standard Deviation said it in the comments, but it feels like it's WWE scripty, both of those segments to me. Now, I think Stat and Willow pulled it off a little bit better than the Triangle Magnus in this particular case, but it still didn't feel, as genuine as I think it needs to be to really hit and land home for some of the top tier women's programs in the company right now. And that kind of adds to a point that I also noticed. If you look at the women's title matches for next week, and then you watch the women's tag match from tonight, if you're an average viewer, you might think, why aren't Toni Storm, Mina, and Megan Bayne at the main event level? And why are these kind of what seemingly feels like sometimes more mid-card acts in the main event level right now? And what they've traditionally been were mid-card acts. And it seems like they flipped the acts from one. They brought one from the main event, one to the mid-card, and flipped the other to the main event. But they didn't, peel back anything else. They didn't advance the characters as necessarily they need to be. So the difference is jarring. Yeah.
And I think WWE, we think that's maybe going on. Charlotte's in a tag team. Rhea's in a tag team with Io. And I like when you clear some of the people who are always on top, especially I'm acknowledging a reality, not necessarily endorsing it, but there's just not as many segments for women as men in WWE, and certainly not AEW. So if you always take the top women and they're always in the top program, there's not room for others to have a chance to grow and show that they can be more than they are, because they're just visiting the main event and then they're off TV or in a mid card. So clearing some of the established top people out of the way to give a little breathing space for other people to be on top, I think is what WWE is doing, and probably partially what AEW is doing. Although part of it too is just they think Storm they want to tell us a story with Storm and Shirakawa that, will play out too. And I think that's probably also Rhea and Io. So I think they believe in the story they're telling, but it also frees up space for someone else to try to prove they can be in the top mix. So then when, like Becky in the IC title level, well, when she goes back to the world title realm, it'll be fresh. She won't just be the stale person who's always there.
Yeah, and I think the biggest issue in my mind is what I've done differently is I would have made Willow the women's champion and had Stat. I guess Stat could be the TBS champion. I would have had that reversed. I think Willow just fits the role better. I think she's progressing better and she feels more genuine too. And as you said, Wade, I know you said it over time, and maybe I think you're a little bit harsher on Willow than I would be as far as kind of like the third grade teacher. But I can't say I don't see it to a certain extent. Yeah. But I think she's come a long way, and she will make leaps and bounds. And I think she'll get to that point of being a credible women's champion. I can't say I feel that way about Stat, but that's someone you want in your roster. But I don't know if you want her carrying your water in the women's division at this point. And I don't know if she'll ever get there, to be honest. So, yeah,
that crossed my mind too. I was like, why is Stat the leader here? I mean, again, it kind of goes to Kenny, the catchphrase is my critiquing of Willow is not why is she on TV. It's produce her in a way that dials down something that I think is a little syrupy and off-putting, because there's something there that's people are enthusiastic. There's a groundswell of grassroots enthusiasm for her early on, and you want to build on that, but it doesn't mean it's like with writing, you want a couple people to look at your book before you send it to the publisher. You want an editor to look at your writing if you can before you hit publish. There's just a little bit of that with her act, but I was watching that tonight and I'm like, I'd be pushing Willow with the top title in the top feud.
Yeah, and I think sometimes Willow is really good. Sometimes she's just okay, but I don't think she's ever honestly bad or ever really bad. So sometimes Stat can be really bad.
Yes.
So it's different levels.
Yep. Willow's visited bad for me a couple times, but
I think it's more so in the past though. I wouldn't say honestly in the last 6 months that I felt that way.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, there's remnants there. Yeah. But don't. Yeah. I just don't go back to it. But you're on a good path. But just be cognizant. There's a little bit of a syrupy overacting that feels a little third grade substitute teacher or soccer coach scolding kids, and just talk like you're talking to adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else? I can't go to your email to think of things I didn't think of to talk about, but you got notes. What else do you have?
Yeah, actually sent myself an email today, so I would remember to do it. But
so I don't forget, did your wife have any other thoughts on watching wrestling for the first time?
So yeah, she during the Kenny promo, she goes, well, first of all, she said that guy looks like someone, and I can't tell. And then I kind of gave her a brief background about his injury history. Then she said, like, he feels like genuine to me. So I think he made a connection based off of what he did today. So I think that's a positive sign for him. And also, she asked, I think it was in the street fight, why are they always throwing chairs? And that's all she really kind of knows about wrestling too. I think it's like the chair trope in general. But she's like, she goes, it just feels like a little bit too much, and that's just something that I had taken in my notes as well, but kind of before she even made that comment. Mm-hmm. So I think those are some pros and cons to what AEW did tonight that landed with her. So overall, I think she enjoyed it. I don't think she's going to be a regular viewer, but she didn't go, oh my God, this is like the worst thing ever. And I think she just, obviously she's watching more so that because I'm doing the podcast tonight. So I think she's watching right now as well. But those were some of her observations. And then, just kind of hitting on some of my other notes. Is that I liked, Taz was back tonight, obviously. Yeah. And I like that they added the Technique by Taz segment, which I think they might have done in the past.
Yep, they did.
But it definitely gives a more sports-like feel, kind of much the same as what they've been doing with Renee Paquette lately. And some of these subtle changes can make bigger differences in place of previous ear tints over the long term. So I think, that's definitely something worth noting.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. Yep. And Taz was good on. It was good to have Taz back too. I liked him acknowledging, like, I can't be objective. These guys beat up Hook, but I'll do my best to be he seemed like he was well rested. And I don't know if raise the IQ level of commentary is the right phrase, because obviously Bryan Danielson, but Taz is a much more experienced color commentator and has worked with a diverse group of people in headset, helping him out and broadcast partners. And he does bring something to the shows that I noticed was back that had been missing.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, 100% agree with that. There was it was noticeable that Taz was there tonight, I would say, relative to prior weeks, at least the last few weeks. So that's something that I definitely took note of. And there's a genuineness to Taz as well, and just obviously as being a former wrestler, I think that it's a certain amount of credibility too. And then I would also say that it seemed like, I don't know, maybe it'd be just me, but it seemed like they were pushing Collision a little bit harder this week than they normally do, and I can't help but feel like that might have something to do with TNA kind of being on Thursday and wanting to squeeze more air out of the wrestling vacuum that exists on a weekly basis, since the copious amounts of content that you can consume. I think there might be something there to that, which obviously I'm not opposed to, and I think it makes sense. But I actually do kind of hope it lights a fire to Tony that I get why he doesn't. This was touched on the flagship as well, but I get why he doesn't put so much ammunition into Collision. But maybe with what he does do, it's a little bit more organized. At least it's a little more crossing the T's and dotting the I's than it has been in the past. And I think there might be that more focus, particularly obviously with the Jags being eliminated from the playoffs, so that might open up some time for him as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I in the VIP exclusive Wade Keller News Bulletin, I compared some of Impact's viewership to some of AEW numbers in different, especially Collision, because that's the one that is most at risk of Impact, encroaching on. And yeah, I can see that Tony does not want Impact, which is what WWE's fourth brand in certain ways, with the crossover with NXT. He doesn't want them beating his number 2 show. So, I mean, if it causes him to go, all right, I'm inspired, let's make Collision a show more worth watching, that's good. I still think if you do an introductory video for a new wrestler like they did on Collision last Saturday, and they do, you can't assume next time they appear on Dynamite that people saw that. I think Collision should still be a place where it is strategically relevant, but never is a strong word, but it shouldn't be must-watch TV to understand what happens on Dynamite the next week or two without a recap on Dynamite telling you what happened. But that doesn't mean you can't make Collision a show that forward storylines, but it shouldn't create storylines or have exclusive storylines that then get brought over to Dynamite. So I just don't think he's quite figured that out yet. It's not a make it relevant or irrelevant. I think it's make it relevant in ways that augment what's happening on Dynamite, but never is required viewing to then understand what happens later on Dynamite.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. It's really kind of what I was trying to convey as well. So totally agree with that. I think another point I would make too, and this kind of goes back to MJF in general, is I think he really did a good job tonight of selling Brody King is an intimidating factor. And that's something that MJF always does a really good job of as well, is acting like the tough guy. But when push comes to shove, he's very good at being quick to back down and having a good reason to do so, but making fans want to see him get beat up. And that's why I really like this kind of, I guess you'd say, side quest feud between MJF and Brody King. I think it really works. And I think, Bandito was a great way to get there as well. So I think that was a smart move, actually, giving him the diamond ring and whatever. I mean, think about that however you get a title shot. But it got to the point where it needed to be, and then this Brody King and MJF, I think, are to carry things to probably like Grand Slam Australia at least. So,
I'd be curious if we know, or if we could get an honest answer of how many people, Tony Khan and others in AEW, watched TNA Impact. Yeah. Derek Mitchell says, AEW has the techniques with Taz. TNA had the injury report, and the injury report was praised as a sports-like vibe. This is not a copy or a derivative of it. It's different, but it's still a pre-recorded segment that people like and gets praised and gives a sports-like vibe to it. So maybe, Taz happened to be back this week, so I don't want to say it was obviously or even necessarily likely inspired by Impact, but the injury report people liked, and this technique report by Taz is good. He's good at it. So
yeah, absolutely. Use the announcers you have for what they're good at. Have JR do standalone interviews, which he's good at, probably backstage, so you can re-record. At this point, I think he was supposed to be there tonight, but they said he hit a fall or something. I think they said on social media, which seems like he said like 5 or 6 of those over the past few years. So you got to feel for the guy, but he's good at that. And I kind of agree. I think some of the commenters had said, Wade, I know you're not super high in Danielson, but I think I'd rather have him over Tony Schiavone at this point. I like Schiavone and have him do the same thing. Have him do like in-ring interviews, do kind of what Renee Paquette does, but from a male perspective. And I think that's kind of what he's best at. But just use the guys with their best skill sets, and you can mix and match at times as well to make sure things feel fresh. Which sometimes I think WWE does that, whether intentionally or not. I think just obviously they reposition people, but I think that worked for the benefit overall. So
I know Tony Khan likes the 3-man booth, and I think part of that is he wants, if he's talking to someone in headset, he wants there to be two people bantering and listening to each other while he's feeding lines. Obviously, he feeds lines to Tony Schiavone a lot, Excalibur a lot. I say that I'm sort of saying that, acknowledging that he has a reason for the 3-man boost, but I would still, my vote would be not Danielson, just Taz and Excalibur. Just do the 2-man booth. I mean, I'd be, that's not a thing on Danielson, although I don't think he's so good that you just, wedge him in and do that. I just think it gets crowded. And I think frankly, Taz and Excalibur would probably rather just be a 2-man booth also.
I mean, I agree, and I think even in professional sports as well. Sometimes you just want to watch the game. You don't want to be, inundated with stories and different opinions and techniques and things of that nature. Sometimes simpler is better. I think one of the stream services is going to offer you can mute announcers, or one announcer is like an option coming forward next year. I can't remember if it's like the NFL. Mm-hmm. I can't help but wonder if that'll somehow find its way into professional wrestling in the future. I think that would probably be a positive, and I think some people would actually utilize that depending on what show you're watching. So
Joey Styles in ECW, solo announcer. People loved him because he was doing those edits in the studio with Paul Heyman at 4 a.m, and nobody else is going to hang around for 6 hours reading word for word what Paul Heyman wanted him to say. I mean, there was not a lot of natural banter with Joey Styles in ECW. It was a single-man booth, and a lot of it was heavily produced by Paul Heyman. There's been other one-man announcers. I know I used to listen to WWF shows in the 80s be called by Roger Kent on the radio, and he did play-by-play, and he'd get to intermission and go, "There's still time to get out here, folks. There's still time. There's tickets available." So they used it as a way to promote shows. But anyway. Okay, another comment. Ducky Duck 120 says, Tony Schiavone was great in the MJF segment. More of that, please. I loved when MJF said, Tony, when I say love, I probably am overstating it, but because the whole gimmick of the heels taking the mic from the interviewer, it's a tired trope. So I want to stipulate that I wouldn't do this very often, but this was a good version of something that I think is overdone. When he goes, I want you to leave your fat geriatric arm up to my mouth, holding the microphone. The funny part was not that. That's just, hack insults. Oh, I don't know, hack's the word, but just, crass insults. What I loved is Schiavone going, I will. He was like conceding sheepishly, like Jerry on Parks and Rec would. Just like, you've just demeaned me as a human being, and I will comply with your request, and I will not take offense to your description of me. In fact, I'll absorb it as the truth. It was Schiavone's reaction being called a fat geriatric, and just go, okay. I thought it was funny. I'm not sure that's what I would direct him to do. I just found it funny.
Yeah, it's like what they say about not acknowledging the bully, not giving them what they want, and slowly if they don't get that recognition, they'll get bored and move on. It was Tony's reaction or strategy tonight. Well, with MJF, it'd be funny if they kind of make that a bit kind of going forward in the future, is that he just doesn't give them that satisfaction.
In my take on it, I thought it was funny, but I also wouldn't recommend it, is I thought Schiavone was accepting that as accurate rather than rolling his eyes and going, what you're saying, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. The way he played it might not have been his intent, but it came across as conceding to MJF. Yes, sir. I am what you describe me as, and I will not bother you anymore. I'll do my job and do what you say. I don't know that that's what he's going for, because I like your approach better, which is kind of be above it. My other thing that I want to give fan credit for, the sign of the night. Did you notice any signs tonight? It was briefly on the screen, so it's not like it was persistently there.
Was it? I don't know. I noticed one sign. It's like "shut your fat mouth" or something like that. I saw, but like that's. I didn't notice a ton of signs tonight. So someone held up a sign in the crowd, and it said "Death Riders rule." No big deal, right? But in parentheses, except Yuta. Yeah, which that's a lot of people feel. I love Yuta. I think he's like a genuinely chicken bleep heel, and it works for him. He should definitely stick with that. I mean, I think maybe turn him face way down the road, but I think he gets real genuine heat, and maybe he's not going to be ever the top of the card because he just doesn't have that. He probably doesn't have the greatest mic skills either, but he's really useful in stables. He's really useful getting stables genuine heat. That's valuable, and particularly how AEW presents a product. I think that's very valuable for what they do. And then kind of going over to that, I think one of the lines of the night was when they were talking about how Jet Speed and Hangman needed to do like a new stable name. And I think Excalibur said coming out was an Air Horse 1, and it was kind of got like a wet fart. So I know he was trying to be corny there, but that actually worked for me. Kind of made me audibly laugh in a corny way as well. So
I shouldn't admit, but I was trying to think of a clever name to present as an option on the show tonight for them, and I didn't come up with anything that I want to repeat on the air. Did you have anything come to mind?
As far as like a stable name for them?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I wouldn't do the mishmash of stuff. I think like it almost feels like every AEW team in some capacity has just their names like planned together, or like
Right.
WWE does that too. Like members like Jericho or like was Y2AJ, and then like
WWE's doing left and right with everybody now.
RK. I think Randy Orton was
RK Bro, RK.
They did RKO. Literally everyone was a mishmash of something. But no, I couldn't think of anything clever. I thought Air Horse One was funny, but obviously I don't think that's going to stick. But I think there is something they could do there. I think it's a team with a lot of charisma, and I think Hangman is a good way to help to get them over as well as Swerve is. So,
yes. So the chat, as you can imagine, JB has some thoughts here. Sadler Vision 3 noted Show Miz as a Big Show Miz tag team name.
That doesn't make sense. I mean,
Showbiz? Showbiz?
Oh, Show Miz. Okay, I guess I get it.
Yeah.
But
so. Zach Barber says there was a literal horsecock chant after what Speedball said.
Okay, they were saying horse cock. Okay, because I didn't really. I thought they were saying but it would be kind of funny.
We'll just say it's CAULK. For the sake of things here, the crowd was chanting horse cock at Kevin Knight during the ad break. All right. Real Legend says Io Sky and Rhea Ripley should be brutality of the sky. That's a different topic. We can go back to that. What's that?
Sounds like a name of a video game or like a God of War.
Yes.
Version or something like
There you go.
Yeah.
Real Legend said, Wade, Space Cowboys. LOL.
Is that like a movie? That might have been a movie.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Standard Deviation says Jet Set Rodeo.
That could be like a DJ's name or something, like a DJ from Texas.
Yeah. Anyway. That's all they got for us. Another comment here. Zach Barber just goes, I don't see how Wheeler Yuta could ever get cheered. Derek Mitchell with a good suggestion. Maybe I'd have Taz on Dynamite and Danielson doing the pay-per-views, because I think Danielson's better on pay-per-view calling long matches.
I
think that's where his strength as a commentator is. Let's see. I threw on the screen here. Derek saying, I think they'd be fine, but Danielson cancels out Taz as the expert. There's a little redundancy there. Yeah. Rude Dog says Gordon Solie was a great one-man announcer, drinking gin and smoking cigarettes while he was at it. Standard Deviation says pay-per-views can have rotating commentators. That's true, especially as long as they are. And I don't know if there's too much else here late in the chat. Anything else, JB, in your notes? So otherwise we can sign off.
No, I think we covered everything. Yeah, overall, good show. Easy watch. I think AEW's on a good path right now. Like you said, a steady path, but I think it shouldn't be climaxing right now. That should be kind of more mid-February, kind of as we get towards the pay-per-view. So, I think everything's paced well, and the show's been paced well as well, which is something I've noticed. Like I said, there's a good mix. It doesn't feel necessarily bang, bang, bang like it sometimes does. I think everything makes sense where it's been placed, at least since MJF returned. So.
I will add, this was posted earlier by Standard Deviation. I just found it. Imagine Kenny and Jacob Fatu as a tag team. All breaks, no gas, good night, moi, good night, bang.
It just continues. Yeah, just like it'd be like a skit that they used to do where they just keep adding on to the name. Or as you said, with DDP's character from WCW in the 90s, where they just hat on a hat on a hat. So
yes, that's exactly. Yep. Yeah. Did I see something else here? I know. GWF ESPN, final just saying here. Last week's TNA Wade Keller post show was the most entertaining post show in 6 months. So if you missed that, check it out. It's on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed, or you can find it on our YouTube channel too. And like I said, the plan, more than tentative but not locked in, is for me to host a post show tomorrow night if all goes as planned with my schedule. So tune in tomorrow night after Impact and check out pwtorch.com for the report. Check out JB's TNA Impact hits and misses also. JB, fun doing a show with you. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, Wade. I appreciate it every time. And everyone have a great week. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll throw up the VIP plug here as we do our sign off. pwtorch.com/govip. That's pwtorch.com/govip. Find out details on how to sign up. You can sign up through Patreon, Spotify, your Apple Podcast account. credit card, debit card, PayPal, lots of ways to go, and lots of different packages of features depending on what you're looking for. So check out full details on that site, ad-free, commercial-free podcasts, VIP exclusive podcasts, over 2 decades of archives of podcasts, hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s, including my run on KFAN radio with live call-in format, special guests, fun stuff, just rabbit holes everywhere to go down and read and experience and listen to our contemporaneous coverage of decades of pro wrestling with this same style of coverage, with a lot of voices giving their opinions and a lot of insider information provided throughout, especially in those back issues of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, especially during that Monday Night War era where it's just crazy with news every week. So check that out. Thanks, everybody. If you have a second, please like this show. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to our show on YouTube. If you're listening to us on the podcast side of things, give us a 5-star rating in your podcast app. As always, you can reach me at kellerwade@gmail.com for any general inquiries or feedback. And we will talk to you later this week. Thanks, everybody.